West Africans deported to Ghana under the Trump administration's deportation program are now stranded in Togo. Lawyers say the group was quietly moved across the border without proper documentation. The group was initially held at a military facility in Ghana and had requested improved living conditions. Instead, they were told they would be relocated, only to be left at the Ghana-Togo border with no papers and no support. The lawyers are now preparing lawsuits against the Ghanaian government and the U.S. administration, accusing them of violating international human rights protocols. Ghana denies receiving any financial compensation for accepting deportees. Meanwhile, the U.S. has lifted visa restrictions on Ghana. The case has intensified scrutiny of the U.S.'s third country deportation policy and its impact on vulnerable migrants. West Africans deported to Ghana.
All right. Welcome to This Week in Ghana. Today's stories: U.S. deportees stranded in Togo, as you just saw. Ghana sued over human rights crisis. $8 billion gold boom in Ghana, and a few other stories as well. Before we get into those stories, we like to do our introductions. So I'll turn it over to my co-host for hers before I do mine.
Hello, my name is Ivy Prosper, and I tell stories from Africa and the African diaspora. I do that through interviews with people, as well as sharing personal experiences, travel experiences, giving advice and tips on living and moving to Ghana. I do consultations with people on moving to Ghana. I also am a speaker, and I'm a published author of the book, Your Essential Guide on Moving to Ghana, which you can get on Amazon. And it has all kinds of information that's perfect for beginners who are looking to move to Ghana. I'm also a YouTube creator. My YouTube channel is Ivy Prosper, simply my name, where I share all those stories. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you can get future uploads of all the things that I'm talking about on my channel.
Absolutely. And I'm Joe Hatagwa, founder of Authentic African. We are a platform that focuses on helping people visit, invest, and move to the continent of Africa. We are bridging the gap between those living on the continent and in the diaspora. And today we have many stories to go through. It just occurred to me after watching a video that Ivy just did that maybe we should do a quick update on the ADDI Burkina Faso story, because I'm still getting comments from our last live stream 2 weeks ago, where we played some commentary and some thoughts from some folks that are in ADDI, and there was a response from Dr. and her name is escaping me, but who runs ADDI. And
Dr.
so
Ericana?
Dr. Ericana, yes. Was it Africana?
Ericana,
right. Sorry. I've had 3 hours of sleep. So Dr. Ericana, and she gave her response. I know, Ivy, you covered this extensively, so everyone can head over to Ivy's channel if they want to get that follow-up. But since on this platform we discussed it, maybe it makes sense to do it quick. And Ivy, I know I didn't tell you this, but I just thought about it as we were going through this for the audience who may not have seen your video. Dr. Ericana did respond on the Burkina Faso citizenship controversy. For those who are maybe not as familiar and those who need to catch up, basically, there were folks who had gone on a trip, folks who had been on webinars and live streams and had been planning to get citizenship in Burkina Faso. The Burkina Faso government had come out and said recently that it would be citizenship, permanent residency, or at least residency.
No,
so
they were told that they were they said that they were going to be getting citizenship, but now it's been changed to permanent residency.
There it is, permanent residency. And so some people feel like it was a money grab. Some people feel that they were just being dishonest, and other people are a little bit more practical about it and just think that it was maybe some overzealousness and some miscommunication, maybe having come from different folks. But I think the majority of people who have been responding, at least on my side, have seemed to say, if they were in ADDI, that that it was not the fault of ADDI, but it was changes based on what they had heard. And so those were some of the responses I was seeing. But then I was scrolling through my YouTube and I saw that Ivy had a video with Dr. Ericana, and you played her video. Do we want to just give a quick update to the folks who've been watching and want to know what came of that, at least what her response to the complaints were, before we get into this week's stories?
I didn't think we were going to jump into this one. I thought this topic was not going to be on today, but she basically responded saying that what's being told is misinformation. She's saying that she's not happy with what the other two content creators have said, the way that they approached it. And she's just basically saying that anybody who was in any of those Zoom calls, any of the meetings, that it was clear to everyone that you are able to get the permanent residency, but not citizenship. And also that people lack understanding about how much it does cost to travel, because I guess there were some people who thought that $500 would be enough to travel to Burkina Faso, but that doesn't even cover a flight. So basically she's saying that everything that they were saying was misinformation. So she actually has filed a formal complaint. This wasn't said in the video, but I received information from one of her people that she's filed a formal complaint, a legal complaint to YouTube in regards to slander of her name, defamatory statements, and that she wants them to investigate into the people who are doing defamation of character. That's what I understood. That she didn't say it in the video, but this is a statement that she has submitted to YouTube directly about defamation of character. That she feels that the claims being made are false, and that that those guys don't have the right information to be able to make those kinds of conclusions that are being made. That's what she's saying in her statement. But in the video overall, she's given her explanation that people are misinformed, and that she doesn't understand why people are making it to be that people are saying that she scammed, and she's saying she didn't, that everything was transparent. Everybody had all of the information, basically.
There it is. I know we didn't talk about this earlier, so sorry to put you on the spot, but that was really helpful update and insight for those who didn't get a chance to watch Ivy's video, but still go back and watch it so you can hear the full response from Dr. Ericana. I'm getting a call from a client. I'm going to play a video. I have to answer this call because they never call me back. So I have to answer this. I'll be right back, guys.
All right. So are you putting it on the screen? Oh, I thought he was playing the video on the screen. All right. So because this is let me put this on the screen. I don't think I can put your comments on the screen. Yes. Because this is being streamed from the Authentic African, I unfortunately don't have the tools to be able to show some of the comments that are coming through right now. So I see that Mosi Millions says $500 was for backpacks, parties, and bus transportation, according to them. Take that for what it's worth. And also the container they were supposed to send to Burkina has not been delivered. A lot of times sending stuff to Africa takes a long time. I know that when I'm traveling to Ghana, and if I'm in Canada and I want to send stuff to Canada, I usually ship it like 3 months ahead of time, so that once I get to Ghana, that the stuff is there when I get there. So it can take a long time. So I don't know when the stuff was shipped. Wisdom Kweku Egbo says peace and prosperity to Miss Ivy, Prosper, and everybody. Thank you for joining. As I said, this live stream is a collaboration live stream between myself and Authentic African. Unfortunately, he had to step away for a moment from the live stream. And because it was being streamed directly from his channel and then streaming to mine, I don't have access to the tools to be able to show your comments on the screen. So I'm reading them out right now. Fred Nontera says, hello, thank you for joining, Fred. Wisdom Kweku Agbo says, how was your lasagna, Miss Ivy? Haha. He's asking that because on my live stream I did a couple of hours ago, I was having lasagna to celebrate my 9-year anniversary of living in Ghana. So I have a total of 11 years experience in Ghana. I lived in Ghana 2011 to 2013. Then I left and came back in 2016. So now from 2016 to now, I've been here 9 years, and I went to take myself out to dinner to celebrate the 9 years. So I had lasagna with my pineapple and mint juice is what I had. So thank you so much, everyone. Brenda Mitchell from California, thank you. Hello. CJH, congratulations for 9 years in Ghana. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So Joe is back.
I'm back. I'm so sorry, guys. You have no idea how long I've been trying to reach that person. That's 4 weeks. So they called, and the day job, that's what pays the bills. That's what ensures that I have the internet so that we can even do this call. Or do this live stream. So I really apologize for just jumping like that. I think, first of all, congratulations on 9 years in Ghana, Ivy. I didn't even realize you just crossed that threshold. Big deal. I did a maximum of 2 years and 3 months in Ghana. But I do plan to do a longer stint in the future. So to get back into the story, so, as you saw at the opening, right, one of the biggest challenges with this Ghana deal with the U.S. deportees was them getting back to their country of origin. Number of stories have since come out about what has happened since they have entered into Ghana and where now they have been sent. So we're going to play 2 videos back to back just because they both have different context from the first video we played. One is, they're both pretty short, so maximum of like 2 minutes each, but I do want to just play those so that you guys get some more context, and then we'll give you some of our thoughts on the other side. I think it was a little surprising to me what is come out in some of these stories. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments what you guys think as you hear from, in this case, it's going to be Panagenius, and then the next one is coming from Ion. So I'll press play and we'll come back.
Whew, my people, this Ghana-US deportation deal just keeps getting messier by the day. And now it's spilling across borders. Here's the latest twist. One of the deportees, a Nigerian man, says he's now stranded in a hotel in Togo. Why? Because Ghanaian officers allegedly tricked him and 5 other deportees, saying they were being moved from a military camp to a hotel, but instead they were secretly dumped across the border into Togo. He claims the officers even bribed local police to make it happen. Now, this man says he's been torn away from his wife and children in the US, left struggling to survive without documents, and forced to depend on hotel staff to receive money from relatives abroad, all while worrying about how his family would cope back home, since he was their sole breadwinner. He says he was part of the Yoruba Self-Determination Movement, an activist organization advocating for a breakaway state in southwest Nigeria for the Yoruba ethnic group, and that if he's sent back to Nigeria, he fears arrest or even worse, torture. And remember, he was supposed to be under US court-ordered protection that should have blocked his deportation in the first place. My people, this exposes the chaos behind the US third country deportation policy, where deportees are dumped in countries they're not even citizens of. Now, Ghana's government says it accepted the deal in the spirit of Pan-African solidarity, but opposition MPs are calling it reckless and demanding Parliament suspend the agreement. Meanwhile, lawyers are already suing both the US and Ghana for human rights violations. So here's the question. Should African governments really be agreeing to these US deportation deals? And is it Pan-African solidarity when there is no plan whatsoever to get these deportees back into their countries safely?
All right, so I will get to another one that has...
How do you think about Black...
Sorry, has a little bit more context, and I will get to that shortly. But in the meantime, while we work to get that, that particular story, I think, and I might not be able to get the other video. So for more context, I think might be a little bit more helpful to talk through what else I read as well. And so one of the other things that I read was, as she mentioned, this gentleman said he was afraid he was going to face prosecution, right? And so he was seeking asylum in the United States, and that was exactly what the reasoning was. Apparently that wasn't accepted, or whatever actually happened when he landed on the ground in the United States. So he was part of the group that was unceremoniously removed from the United States. Now, because there's discussion about their home country not being a place that they can go back to, it seems as though there were questions about what options there were for them to be repatriated somewhere on the continent. I don't know what happened in Ghana, but they're claiming that they were tricked into going into Togo as a fourth party country. If Ghana is the third party country, Togo would be the fourth party country that they were sent to. I do want to play one more video that gives a little bit more context. Apologies, guys. That call just really threw me off. So I'm just gonna press play on.
Be creatives are not your typical.
And we will give some more commentary right after we get more context from this particular story. This is from our friends at joy.fm on the radio. If you know, you know. Let me share the screen. There we go. Sorry.
Pension trust into the future with you tonight.
That West African nationals, were acceptable, because all our fellow West Africans don't need a visa to come to our country. So if they decided to travel from US to Accra, they don't need a visa anyway. So if you're bringing our colleague West Africans back, that's okay. And so I think that agreement has been activated, and a first batch of 14 nationals came. Several of them were Nigerian brothers. They opted to go back home. And so we put them on buses, to be able to go back home. One of them was a Gambian who, it's not as easy. You have to get him an air ticket to be able to facilitate his travel. So what we've done is contacted their embassy to let them know of his presence so that they can facilitate his return to Gambia. And so that's the issue with regards to deportations and arrivals. West Africa has the protocol of free movement. And so any West African is free to come to Ghana and be able to stay for 90 days. And so if they decide to bring them, we don't have a problem accepting them.
All right, so that was an official government response for some of those deportees, right? Some of them opted to go back to Nigeria, one to Gambia. What wasn't mentioned was the Nigerian national that is, and others that have, that claim to be stranded in Togo.
That's because that statement that you just played was actually before this news story about people being in Togo.
Okay. So interesting. So so this spoke to a number of those folks. I think a number was 14 initially, right? That were accepted into Ghana initially. I don't know how many people he named in that statement there, but he specifically talked to some that went to Nigeria and one that went to Gambia, which doesn't speak to all 14. So yeah, your thoughts on this story and what's happening with those who say they've been stranded in Togo.
I think it's an unfortunate situation if that's really the case that's happened, because his whole reasoning was that because people are from West Africa that are being accepted as deportees, that they have free movement within West Africa, and that's why to accept them would be an easy decision. and that they can stay in Ghana for 90 days because they're being ECOWAS people. So my question is, if they can stay for 90 days, why weren't the people able to stay for the 90 days while they tried to sort themselves out before they had to leave and go back to their home countries? But we don't have much history on the reasons why certain people were deported. But we know that the U.S. is just doing mass deportations right now. And, you know, somebody may even legitimately be in the country for all we know. We don't know what the details are. But I think that it is, the rumor that I hear is that Ghana accepted them, and the exchange that Ghana got was lifting that visa restriction that was put on Ghana and other West African countries, because they had put a restriction that visas were now only going to be good for a month instead of the 5-year multiple entry that they were offering to people when people got tourist visas for the United States. So once Ghana accepted those deportees, what I read was they got in exchange to go back to the 5-year, and they're no longer restricted to the 1 month visa, tourist visa, like other countries still are. So Nigeria refused to accept deportees, and their restriction of 1 month visa is still being enforced. So people are saying that, you know, he only accepted them because of wanting that to be lifted. That's what I hear. But it's an unfortunate situation for people to be stranded, because that shouldn't be the case. It's possible that maybe that there are human rights reasons. I haven't read what the specific reasons are that people have said that they're not safe to go home, because I did hear some people say that they didn't feel safe to go back to where their home country is. I don't know what the human rights things are that they are talking about. It could be anything. It could be sexual orientation, because I know that's one of the reasons why some people seek asylum in the U.S., because their home countries may have laws against it. I don't know. I'm just speculating right now. So I don't want anybody to take what I'm saying out of context. I'm speculating because I don't have all the details as to the reasons why each of these people may say that they don't feel safe in their home countries. So it's an unfortunate situation.
Absolutely. And I will say this, you know, two things can be true. So one of the things that the opposition, or the current administration, I should say, opposition to this mass deportation say, is that it's unfair. And the administration currently will say there are people abusing the asylum laws, right? Because if you're seeking asylum, you can step foot into the United States, say you're seeking asylum, and now you're put into a system that at least gets to check to see if you can or cannot continue to seek asylum. Or you can seek asylum at the border, come in, they give you a date, right? And, you know, as long as you're now, some of those people are forcibly removed before they even go to that court date or while at that court date. And so there's a lot of confusion about whether or not you can step foot into this country, then ask for asylum. Are you illegal at that point? Or even if you ask before you reach the border and then they let you in, and, you know, you're still getting, you know, deported after coming in for your court case. There are people who are, of course, like any visa, like any other option, there are people who are abusing the process, right? H-1B visas, there are people abusing the process. I think the administration that is currently in place today is taking a heavy-handed approach, and almost the assumption is that everyone is abusing the process, right? So as opposed to, you know, taking a fine-tooth comb and scrutinizing every application and ensuring, you know, that you determine if this person really is in danger going back to their home country, what they're doing is just giving money to other countries to say, will you take these people? Ghana, as you mentioned, has said they did not take money, but there is speculation that the visa restriction lift was kind of a quid pro quo for taking these deportees. You know, I think that I just want to be clear that two things can be true. You know, I'm a child of immigrants, and so I'm pro migration if you want to. I think the borders are artificial anyway, in my opinion. You know, these are just drawn lines, right? But, you know, at the end of the day, these are laws that are in place. And, you know, if we want to change those laws, we need to vote for officials that you want to change those laws, right? But from what I can see here, is when you have someone who runs on fixing a quote unquote problem, but doesn't necessarily have a plan, what you find is things like this can happen, right? They move with haste. They find any possible person who's willing to approve receiving these deportees, and they just send them, right? And to your point, what about those people who really do have legitimate claims? We don't know what percentage of those people there are, but even, you know, the law always says if just one person is unjustly removed and or imprisoned, that is a failure of the entire system, right? And so if there is two people, one person out of this group of 14 that actually does have a legitimate claim, then what happened to them is an absolute tragedy. Whether or not they were to end up in Ghana full time, which was obviously not where they wanted to go, or if now they're in Togo, which causes more challenges in terms of language, right? Because Togo is a French-speaking country. They're from an Anglophone, English-speaking country, so that causes more challenges. However this came to be, and whatever the story is, and we'll continue to follow it, I do feel like, you know, if that is what actually happened, those people were failed by two systems, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
The one in the United States and unfortunately what ended up happening in Ghana. I'd like to see, you know, Mahama seems very reasonable, and you know, I from what I've seen in terms of his communication, he seems to be someone who wants to fix some of the challenges of Ghana's past. And so whatever happened here, I would imagine if this is on his radar and he's aware of it, I'm interested to see how he fixes this situation. I'll put it that way. Being very careful with how I speak about this because I want to make sure I don't imply anything. But I just want to be very clear that, you know, from what I see, it seems like he would be someone who would want to do something about this. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does to fix this immediately, if this is so true. I mean, we will see. But there will be more of these. So across the continent, just be prepared to see more of these. There's already been 4 countries on the continent that have agreed to these third-party deportations. 4 countries in Africa already who have agreed to them. And there's already been more than, at this point, 80 to 90 people that have already been sent back in the last couple of weeks. So just expect to see more stories like this. Hopefully not so many like this, or at least the way this turned out in Ghana. Okay, with that, moving on to the next story. So, excuse me. On a positive note, Ghana earned a US dollar 8 billion from small-scale gold exports between January and October of this year. So their small-scale gold mining sector has delivered an extraordinary performance this year, generating more than, as I said, 8 billion US dollars in foreign exchange earnings between January and the 15th of October, so last week, according to new data released by the Ghana Gold Board. It's called Goldbod. The figures compiled from experts certified by Goldbod and the precious metals marketing company PMMC reveal that the small-scale gold exports actually reached 81,719.23 kilograms, and that's valued at that 8 billion USD within the first 9 months and 9.5 months of the year. This marks a record-breaking surge in both volume and value compared to previous years. In 2024, Ghana exported 63,000 versus the 81,000, right? And that was valued at 2.19 billion last year. And so the 2025 figures therefore represent a 75% increase in volume, nearly doubling of export earnings over the entire 2024 achieved in less than 10 months. And it looks like the value of gold has also gone up in that time. So it's an exponential amount versus the amount exported. So with that, I do want to play this video, and we'll have some commentary on the other side.
$8 billion earned from gold bars. Shatawale says he brought money into the system. Gospel singer vows on divorcing his wife. Public edge not to learning sector has delivered an first story this week. Ghana's small-scale gold mining sector has delivered an extraordinary performance this year, generating more than $8 billion in foreign exchange earnings between January and October 15, 2025, according to new data released by the Ghana Gold Board. Now, the figures compiled from exports certified by Gold Board and the Precious Minerals Marketing Company revealed that the small-scale gold exports reached about 81,000 kilograms, valued at 8.06 billion within the first 9.5 months of the year. Away from that, and Ghanaian dancehall icon Charles Nyama Mensah, popularly known as Shatawale, has shared his thoughts on how government should improve its treatment of citizens, urging the greater respect and fairness towards the people who contribute to the nation's group. Now, Shatawale also made a very bold claim about this economic influence, asserting that his contributions to Ghana's economy through entertainment and job creation surpass those of major government ministries.
Your thoughts on the $8 billion in gold that Ghana has done over the first 9 months of the year?
Well, I think that even though there's this growth in gold and the value of gold has gone up so much over the last little while, the unfortunate thing is that it still doesn't always trickle down to the average person, because the real value would be is if there is more processing and refining domestically into jewelry and some high value products that can help create jobs in selling it abroad. But I feel like there's still a lot of exporting and not enough refinement happening here locally, in my opinion. I know that they're really working towards shifting that. And that's the whole reason why they even had the new gold board implemented, as well as, they've actually gotten rid of some of the foreign entities that were doing gold mining and trying to give it all back into local. So I think that even though I think it's great that there's growth, but I think there has to be an intentionality in making sure that there is a trickle down effect to the average person. There needs to be some kind of value add that, whether it's in manufacturing, branding of products to sell abroad, that's processed here in the country, I think, because revenue doesn't always translate to something tangible, a tangible benefit for the local community. Because I think that's what a lot of people will be concerned about. They'll think, well, so what? It's making this much money, but have wages increased in the country? Are people doing better? And unfortunately, we still have the problem with the illegal gold mining that's happening. So it's like, with the value of gold having gone up, I think the value went up to like $4,000 or something like that. You're going to have these people who are doing the illegal mining still doing some of this illegal stuff because of getting quick money, unfortunately.
All great points. Yeah. I mean, the biggest challenge we have on the continent is we do not, we have the raw natural resources. We do not refine them and sell them. And unfortunately, they get sold back to the continent of Africa. You can buy refined gold pieces at the airport, or chocolate at the airport at exorbitant prices, even though it came from Ghana, right? It always amazes me when I get to the airport and I see the jewelry stands at Kodaka, or I see the chocolate bars sold and it says Swiss chocolate. They have no cocoa beans in Switzerland, right? It comes from Ghana, but it gets imported back into the country. And so that is one of the biggest challenges we see on the continent. And we would love to see that change and that turnaround.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You had something.
I just saw that in one of the comments, somebody was asking if the government is building its own gold reserve. I read somewhere that the government is actively trying to build its own reserves, and they're trying to do it in partnership with the Bank of Ghana, that they're working towards that. It's something I read back in August, and it's a strategy that they're working on to try to help have their own reserves. So I don't know if they've actually started, but that's something that I read from August.
Well, that's huge if they do. I really would love to see that. And that's definitely a good start. And then somebody did ask a question about whether or not they will be able to can they make Ghana look green like Rwanda, like Accra like Accra looks like a desert. Can the 8 billion? Okay, so I will say this. Be careful how I describe Rwanda. Rwanda's progress is very much because of what international parties all agree is the theft and the pillaging of resources from their next door neighbor, the Congo. So I don't know if we always want to be utilizing Rwanda as a example of what we want our countries to be like. Now, in terms of what they've been able to do with the funding they got from those stolen resources, apparently it is a great place to go. But I do want to just call that out because I don't know how much people are aware of that. It's something that I reported on a lot with African Stream. They themselves have mentioned that most of the legal and illegal exports of the natural minerals coming out of the Congo are coming through Rwanda. And they asked us to blame the end destination instead of the path in which it gets to those end destinations. And so, but in terms of reinvesting that into the country, to Ivy's point, right? We hope that it does. Many times it doesn't, but we would like to see that change. Countries like Burkina Faso, who I know we spoke about briefly earlier, they have nationalized some of these programs, and it seems that they have reinvested in their country. So hopefully some of what they're doing, at least in terms of how they're reinvesting that money, can be picked up and also emulated by Ghana as well.
So with the green, so Ghana launched a few years ago their Green Ghana Day, and it is in June. It's usually the first week of June. And for the Green Ghana Day, it was supposed to be about trying to combat Ghana's losing its trees and all that kind of stuff. And so they do this initiative every year where they want to plant like 2 million trees across the country. I think it's between 2 to 5 million trees across the country. And so the Forestry Commission actually gives people free seedlings, plants, trees that you can go and take and plant at home to be part of the greening of more greening of the country, especially Accra. I actually went this year and I got a moringa plant, I got a mango tree, I got a lime tree, and a bunch of other different plants that I got that they were giving away for free. Anybody could go to the Forestry Commission and say, I want part of the Green Ghana initiatives. And then they give you the list of all of the plants they're giving away. And then you literally take them and you leave. And then you go home and you plant them. So we used to do that when I used to work for Ghana Tourism Authority. We would have this whole event where we would go and plant with the diaspora community. We would plant trees for the purpose of trying to green the country. So it is an initiative that they have worked on. The problem, though, that I see is, as much as they're trying their hardest to plant trees to green Ghana, they call it Green Ghana Day. We also have a lot of the developments and projects, builders who are cutting down trees at a faster rate than what is being planted. So it's like counteractive, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Ivy always has the additional details to give more context for all the questions that are asked. I do remember going to the Shy Hills Wildlife Reserve, right? And seeing how Kwame Nkrumah had set aside that land to not be developed on, right? So that you have that wildlife reserve. And while on that tour, they mentioned the planting of trees, right? And that's one of the places that they continue to plant trees. So I think that it's an amazing initiative. It's unfortunate that, there's a counterintuitive capitalistic nature of cutting down trees happening on the other side that is not, it's not keeping up with that. I know that they legalized hemp at one point in time in Ghana, so hopefully maybe hemp could be used to offset some of those uses for paper or for trees. But I do know a lot of times trees and sticks are used for buildings, and a lot of buildings are being built right now across the country, particularly in Accra. And you guys know what I'm talking about when you see these unfinished houses and you have the branches, right? These branches kind of holding up cement. Oh, is it bamboo? So in Sierra Leone, it's just straight tree branches. So yeah, okay. So, but in any case, many of those trees obviously have been. It doesn't seem like the one side is counteracting the other. So we'll hope to see that change in the future. Okay, so moving on to the next story, and I know we are coming up on time. You know, this has been a rough one for me today.
It's okay. It happens.
Getting that call was nuts. So the next story is an interesting one. So actually, Ivy brought this to my attention, and I looked into it, and I thought it was really interesting. And this is the story about the Ghanaian nationals and maybe dual nationals to other countries who play football, soccer. Now that Ghana has qualified for the FIFA World Cup, are looking to come back and actually play for the Ghana national team. And there has been some backlash to some of these folks. And, you know, there are a couple of stories. Like we were looking at Pulse the other day, and, you know, some of the, I mean, I'll just show you some of the headlines that we saw when we were kind of looking into this a little bit more. One of which was loyalty over timing. You know, it was a conversation that people are having about people who are eyeing coming back to the Ghana national team. Then there was, you know, one former player, you know, mentioning that, you know, my heart is with Ghana. That was his reason for, you know, eyeing Black Stars call up for the World Cup. And, you know, one of the things for context, I think that, you know, people should take into consideration is this happens frequently, right? Ivy and I spoke about this, but like Sonia Richards-Ross, if I'm not mistaken, is Jamaican. She ran for the United States, even though she was born in Jamaica, grew up in Jamaica. She went to college in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. Or, you know, I had a former trainer when I lived in Los Angeles who had dual citizenship with France, and he ran for the country of France, even though he's born and raised in the United States, because he had a better opportunity to make the French national team than he did the United States national team, because he just wasn't physically up to standard with the American athletes, which happen to be global athletes with American citizenship, right? Yeah. And so it happens all the time, especially with some of these players getting called up to these junior programs at 12, 13, 14 years old in Europe. So I just wanted to give that context for the story. And I don't know if you have anything you want to add, Ivy, to the story and your thoughts on this. But yeah, I think that that's one of the things that I saw when I was reading some of these articles.
Yeah. So, I mean, what happens is in sports, like you said, a lot of the time you realize you have a better chance of competing for a smaller country than for your own country. I think a lot about Naomi Osaka. She was playing for the United States.
All right.
And she had the opportunity, you know, because she has one parent is Japanese. So she had both citizenship, because Japan allows you to have dual citizenship until you turn 21, I believe. And then you have to choose your allegiance, because Japan won't allow you to keep two. So she ended up choosing Japan. And sometimes I think it has a lot to do with, if you're going to play for Japan, you're going to be the shining star, because there's nobody's coming close to you. So you are going to be the shining star. So she played for Japan in the Olympics. And so, so yeah, sometimes playing for a smaller country gives you more of a shining star. You become the focal point. Like the Jamaican bobsled team. I mean, they didn't do great, but they got a lot of attention because you wouldn't think Jamaica to have a bobsled team, in winter sport. You think of them for summer sports. So if you're going to be doing that, then you're clearly going to get a lot of attention. I even thought about myself when I used to do sports when I was younger. I was like, man, if I took it seriously, I could have, because I was born in Ghana. I'm like, I could have gone and run track and field for Ghana or something, because I know I didn't have a chance of making the Canadian Olympic team. The competition is so fierce. I could have probably made the Ghana Olympic team if I wanted to, and then be competing in the Olympics because you're the best of a smaller pool. But as far as these guys go, I think the controversy is that some of them were asked to play for Ghana's national team in the past, and they declined. So now people are like, well, when we asked you to play with us before, you said no, you wanted to play for that European team. Now that you see Ghana has made it to the World Cup, now suddenly you want to switch allegiance and come and play for Ghana. So there's a little bit of that animosity as to why people are like resistant. I think if that history wasn't there, people would be cool with them saying, hey, yeah, okay, you want to switch allegiance? Go ahead, switch allegiance. But the fact that they were asked before, not all of them, but some of them were asked before and said no, I think that's where the source of contention comes from. So it's going to be a really tough decision for the coaches to make, for the team management to make, because, are you going to choose based on you think of who can help you actually win and help you advance and help you really get to, because I think the farthest Ghana has ever made it is to semifinals in the World Cup. So maybe you're now just going to be like, you don't care what happened in the past, all forgiven. We just need people who can play and play well as a team so that we can position ourselves in a way that we can win. I think that's probably the position that they're going to take because they want to win.
Right. Correct. Yes. Look, I agree 100% with, and that additional context was helpful too, just knowing that they had been some of them had been asked previously and declined. But to all of the points we made earlier, there could be many reasons why people decline. And it looks like there are people on either side in the comments, right? Some people say they should welcome them back. Some people say they shouldn't, and I put those up on the screen. In my opinion, I think you should welcome them back. This is my thought process. Here's what controversial opinion, but here's why I think that. At the end of the day, the goal is to win, right? The goal is to win. That is always the goal, right? It doesn't, like, winning on these national stages does a lot for your country. Most people just think about sports as just sports, but one of the things that it does is it's kind of like gladiators. When people can see that you can compete with countries 3 and 4 times your size, with large practice facilities and training facilities and systems and national leagues that people watch all around the world, when you beat that team, it then puts people on notice about your country. It's a source of national pride as well, right? As you continue to win. That's why the Olympics are so big. The Olympics, the reason why there's so much doping happening in the Olympics and people cheating and all that kind of stuff in the Olympics is because it's another way to show your power as a country. People think that it's just sports. There's so many other hidden meanings behind these international competitions. And at the end of the day, you have a younger coach who played just 8 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, or less than that. So he's young, still getting up to speed. And so you're going to want these players who played against the Netherlands, who played with folks from the Netherlands, who played against those guys, who could bring that knowledge back to the team, and so that you can utilize that to better compete against those folks. So to me, I don't see any downside in welcoming them back. You can shame them, but still say, come back and play, right? And just tell them they should have never turned it down in the first place if they did. But as Shay TBD says, it puts you on the map. It does. Now, let's hope that they actually win with some of these folks. I'm not too well versed in the sport of soccer, international football. So, but we will see. We will follow along closely and see what happens. But yeah, I would definitely say I understand it completely as someone who was an athlete, but I would have gone the other way around. As Ivy said, growing up in the States, I would have tried to run for Sierra Leone if I could have, because I would have been much more likely to make the team. Now, one of the things that I do want to mention before we move on to the next story is Naomi Osaka. People said she would have been more appreciated and less discriminated against if she played for her father's nation of Haiti. I think the challenge there was that she didn't have citizenship in Haiti already, if I'm not mistaken, where she already had dual citizenship with Japan, so it made it easier for her to do that. And then based on what Ivy's talking about, there was a timeline in which she had to do it. And look, at the end of the day, she has dual nationalities. She is, well, triple nationalities, right? She's American citizen, but one of her parents.
No, she had to give up her American citizenship. Japan does not let you keep.
Okay.
Japan does not let, after the age of 21, Japan forces you to choose which nationality you are going to be. They do not allow dual citizenship.
Right.
That is the last that I read of it. Unless it's changed, but I know when she was going through that, I remember reading that Japan does not allow dual citizenship. You have to rescind your citizenship to another country if you want to be a Japan citizen. That's what I'm just going to double check because let me Google.
No, I think you're probably right. I misspoke. What I meant to say was she has heritage in both of these places, right? And so, look, I think people forget, like, when someone is mixed race in the United States and they are half black, although the police and everyone sees them as black, they do happen to have another culture and heritage. And sometimes people are inclined to understand both of their heritages, or the heritage and their culture from both sides. And so I think a lot of people of Black and African descent were upset at her for not selecting the Haitian side. And, maybe it's because of, some of her, her commentary around being Black in America. But two things can be true. She happens to be Haitian and she also happens to be Japanese.
Yeah. So I just double checked to confirm and I was right. Yes. Japan does not allow dual citizenship for adult citizens. It says you must choose by age 22. Yeah.
Yeah. And her last name is Osaka, right? So it's very clear she is half Japanese.
Right. So she has her mother's name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not even her father's name. Yeah, it's her mother's name, Osaka. Yeah. Unless that's just the name she uses for her work. Who knows? Anyway.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. And then the last story is a story that we don't have a video for, but we did. But Ivy found this story and we wanted to share it with you guys. And this is around, how should we say, holding people accountable in public office in Ghana. So President Mahama launch is a pay-for-performance framework and digital clock-in system to revolutionize Ghana's public service. So when we talk about public service, we're talking about, it's always confusing when you talk about public companies, because I think a lot of people think of like public on the New York Stock Exchange. But when they say public service, in this case, they mean government service, right? So government service, government employees. This particular article calls it a decisive move to overhaul, Ghana's public. Sorry, I'm having a hard time pulling up the article. It would not allow me to because it wants me to download the app. To overhaul Ghana's public service sector work. But basically, that is the issue here. Is some people find it controversial. Other people are applauding it because many of us have gone to government offices and, they say they open at 10, you get there and it's 10:30 and they still haven't opened yet, right? So this system aims to fix that. But what are your thoughts on this particular system? And is there any other additional context that you can give about this story?
I mean, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that he's trying to do this whole overhaul of making sure that work is being done. And he's saying that People in the public sector have been accused of not doing work they're supposed to be doing. So he's introducing the system, and that it would be a way of tracking people, and that people would also be awarded for good performance as well. So he wants the whole system where people punch in when they start and punch out when they leave, so that you can see the hours that people were there when they were working. So I think it'll be interesting because it'll be a complete cultural shift because Ghana, excuse me, not only in the public sector, but generally speaking, there's not been consequences a lot of the time with work when people are doing work, as far as like being late or being on time. Some like people can show up, they're supposed to be there. Let's say they're supposed to be at the office at 8:30. People would be showing up at like 11. And then by the time they're supposed to be leaving at 5, people would be packing up already at 4 to leave. They kind of mentally, people will be packing down and not, working at 100%. And it happens in a lot of places. It's not just in government offices. There's a lot of places where that happens. It's not so, I find that it's not so rigid here from my experience. It's not so rigid here the way that it's been when I was living in Canada or even when I was in the US. It's like by the age of 15, I already knew time was money in Canada. Mm-hmm. I was working at McDonald's. You had to punch in your clock and mm-hmm. punch out. And if they told you, if you punched in more than 5 minutes late, they were going to they would calculate and deduct 15 minutes from your pay. If you were, I think it was like, if you were 16 minutes late, they would deduct 30 minutes from your pay. So it's like you already understood the correlation with time is money. But here, that's not necessarily the case. People show up late all the time, but they still get paid the same. People miss work multiple times, they'll still get paid the same monthly salary. So he's introducing something that could potentially be a complete shift in how people work. It could be a complete, people could have a backlash or people can embrace it. But I think it's going to be very difficult because people are not used to this kind of system for a long time. People have never really done this. So it's going to be really tough to implement. So I wonder how he's going to do it. Like, is he going to have certain people in the offices who are responsible for making sure that people are punching in and punching out? Like, how is he going to do it? Because people are used to not doing that right now. So how is he going to enforce it is what I want to know.
Great point. Yes, enforcement is always the challenge when you introduce a new system like this, and a continued enforcement. And to your point, it has not been a part of the culture. I think most people take that into account when it comes to going to government offices if you are born and raised in country. And this is not something specific to Ghana. I think this happens in a lot of, let's say, tropical environments. Because people always tout how Europeans are always on time, not in the south of France. I just came back from the south of France. We definitely had a guy whose shop was supposed to open at 9 o'clock, and I was there for breakfast, and my man strolled in at 10:15, and I was very upset. I wanted to have breakfast so bad. So I definitely think in very tropical places, people get very relaxed, right? The weather is nice, it's just how it is. And so it's not a black man time. It's not an Africa man time. It's a tropical people time. And so, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if it gets implemented, across the board, and if they are able to enforce it. Because I think even those who are meant to enforce it are also the perpetrators of this issue, right? So it'll be difficult to get those guys to enforce something that they themselves do not abide by. But I'm interested to see it, and at the very least, it's a good gesture to start the process, right? I would love to see that, because I myself ran into this challenge at a couple of government offices in Ghana over my experience getting residency and other things. So let's see what happens. So that is the final story of the day. Any final comments for the folks watching before we go?
No. My only comment is because I know there's a mixture of people from the diaspora as well as local Ghanaians that watch the content. And my message to people from the diaspora is that it's always important to know what's happening in the country if it's a country that you want to live in. Because sometimes people move to places, but you still don't really know much about what's happening in those countries. So it's important to keep track of the news, be intentional with learning what news is happening in the country that you're interested in, because it also gives you an idea of the way the culture is. It gives you an idea of how things operate when you read the news from those countries that you may be interested in. Like if you're thinking about Nigeria, if you're thinking about Kenya, if you're thinking about South Africa, Ghana, be intentional about looking up their news and finding out what's going on in the country. Because if you live in the US and you Google stuff, the first thing that's going to come up is going to be American biased news. So you have to be intentional to be like that you're looking for from, africannews.com, or you're looking, because even other news outlets in Europe tell more African stories than some of the US news outlets. You might get more stories from Al Jazeera telling stories in Africa. Or you can just Google news stations in South Africa and see what pops up. News stations in Ghana, see what pops up. And then you start looking at those pages. Because once you start looking, then the algorithm will kind of click in that, okay, this person is interested in that. And then it'll start showing it to you. So just be intentional about the news you read if you want to know more about what's happening in African countries. And then don't be afraid to cross-check information. Because one of the things about content creation, about YouTube, is that it's a great place to get a lot of information from people. But there's also a lot of people who give false information, give wrong information. So it's important that you take the time that if you see that someone said something, you heard about something, that you cross-check if anyone else has said it. Cross-check, is it in the news? Who's reporting on it? Then it gives you a sense of, if you see it happening, like there's a lot of news on it, then you can kind of figure out the truth in there somewhere based on the number of different sources that's coming from. Then you can kind of gather which one is actually the actual accurate information.
Those are all really good points. And to that last one, media literacy is something that we have challenges with all around the world. And, I remember when I was going to school a few years ago, one of the things that we had to do was we had to cite all of our sources when we were writing a paper, right? And
yes,
made us, every time we were making a factual statement, we had to have three different sources that reported on this particular thing, right? What I hear today about people saying, I heard it on Facebook, the size of audience does not determine the depth of knowledge. Okay? Just want to put that out there for folks. You want to find people that are well-researched, and generally, if you know someone who's well-researched, you can generally take their word for it, but you still always want to corroborate what they're saying. Always find ways to corroborate what they're saying, because people have biases. Even if they get something right 99% of the time, that 1%, you can make a life-changing decision based on that information. So you want to do additional research. And when I say do additional research, don't go find other people who have the same viewpoint, right? Don't look for confirmation bias. Look for researched information on that topic. It is tough with quote unquote mainstream media. I know there's a lot of people who have issues with the mainstream media. And so you have to think about what's news and what's opinion when it comes to mainstream media. A lot of folks can talk on camera, and that's opinion. They are not held to the same journalistic standards as those who put out articles, who can get sued for defamation or libel and things like that, right? So, this is not going to be like a journalism 101 class, but I just think that, I would recommend you all do that. I am a person who has my own political leaning belief. I have a side that I'm on, and I always read what the other side says so that I understand all points of a story. And it either helps you stay true and stick firmly to your belief systems, or it might move you a little bit. But it's always good to hear what people who oppose your viewpoint have to say on a particular topic, and utilize them to help you determine if the fact is fact, right? So I really appreciate that point you mentioned there, Ivy, because I see too much of it, way too much in the comments, for sure, in the comments. And so I'll also say, make sure you, okay, we lost Ivy's internet for a little bit. She had perfect internet, guys. The fiber in Ghana is generally really good. So definitely recommend it if you guys are getting internet in Ghana, if you're in Tema or in Accra. But yeah, so I will say, if you haven't already, make sure you head on over to Ivy's YouTube channel and subscribe to her YouTube channel. Check her out on Facebook, Instagram, all the platforms. And then also, if you're on Ivy's side and you haven't already, head on over to Authentic African. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, TikTok, all the platforms. So follow and subscribe to us everywhere. Ivy is back. I was just saying, your internet was perfect until just one last.
Yeah.
This is how it goes, guys. Things that you got to take into consideration when you're living on the continent. So I was just saying for everybody to subscribe. Make sure you hit that thumbs up on this video. Share it with anybody who wants to know about what's going on in Ghana. I think it's important for people to stay aware and abreast of what's happening if you're planning to move or even visit, and continue to cooperate. Generally, in the description, we do put links to the stories that we are referencing. And so in this particular video, I'm not sure I did, but generally you can check those, so you can always be sure that we are getting these from multiple sources, or sources that are I guess you would say, like credible sources. So with that, so Shay's asking, will I do more stories on SL? I will be. I usually do those on Sundays. We've been on a hiatus for a little bit because I've been out of the country and traveling the last 3 weekends in a row. And this coming weekend, I'll be traveling again. But expect that I will be doing stories. And we're changing the live stream on Sundays to Inside Sierra Leone, because it will be conversations about what's happening in Sierra Leone and in the diaspora. And it won't just be about news, but it'll be conversations with folks who are doing business on in that country. So I always represent Sierra Leone every day, as you guys know. So I will be doing that. Okay, so with that, thanks for watching. We will see you guys all back again next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.